It is time for me to open the kimono. You shall see now what I'm working with, what's under the hood, so to speak. The gear. I know a lot of people watching this video just because they want to see what gear I'm running, and here it is. Yes, I'm poor, I know. Don't worry about it. So for the gear, we will be splitting this section into 3 parts: weapons, armor, and jewelry. For the weapons, our rapier, slice and dice. I almost will always exclusively run slice and dice, no matter the situation. In PvP, that is. This rapier is a world drop, bind on equip, named weapon, and can only be obtained in open world. The drop chance is extremely slim, and you usually see these on the trading post hovering around a couple 100,000 gold. However, you may get lucky and get this from a drop, a chest, or even pick it up from the trading post for 35k. The perks for the slice and dice are Rogue, Omnidirectional Evade, and Keenly Jagged. Rogue increases the damage you deal when you hit an enemy from behind by 19%. Take this with the overall mobility that this build has and that just Rapier on its own provides, and it's arguably the best DPS perk that you can have on a Rapier. Next, Omnidirectional Evade. This is a weapon perk, meaning that it is linked directly to a weapon ability, not in the tree itself, but as a passive that is only active when you use the ability. So this gains us 19% damage for 2 seconds after using evade, and the Adagio upgrade is applied when evading in any direction. Normally, the Adagio only triggers when you evade forward, but with this passive, Omnidirectional Evade triggers Adagio regardless of what direction you evade in. And last, Keenly Jagged. On crit, it causes a bleed that deals 10% weapon damage per second for 6 seconds, and it's a 7-second cooldown. Now, this is considered a bleed. And just like how we were looking at the spear stuff earlier, it's a debuff as well. So not only do we get extra crit chance from the spear passive, but we also get the 3rd debuff for the exploiting weakness capstone on the spear. So very, very good. Pairs extremely well with spear. For our gem slot, we are running a Rune Glass of Electrified Aquamarine. This is a combination of the Rune Glass case of Electrifying, as well as a Cut Pristine Aquamarine. Normally, Cut Pristine Aquamarines convert 50% of your damage to ice, but while in a Rune Glass, the Aquamarine damage conversion is set down to 40%. The electrifying part inflicts a surge debuff, dealing 8% lightning damage per second for 2 seconds. In an OPR meta that has a lot of like ranged dex players that are just, you know, like hiding in the hills or on top of the rocks, just teeing away at an open field, because that's just how OPR is. They're not running a lot of elemental resistances. They're mostly running thrust damage resistances because usually it's only another ranged dex player that kills them. That is why I've decided to convert 40% of my damage just to ice damage. What I'm trying to do is to spread my damage among multiple types to get the most out of my damage, as far as like playing against people that like run a lot of physical resistance. Well, I have a lot of elemental damage in this build, so it kind of bypasses those physical resistances. Now, before elemental attunements were introduced to the game, This rapier was considered the best rapier in the game. For this build, it's still the best rapier in the game, just because of the way that I have this build set up. Every perk on here is perfect. Will not change it for anything. Even if I get an attunement rapier with rogue and keenly jagged, no. I love my omni evade, I love my rogue, and I love my keenly jagged. Will not change it. Next, the Ironwood Spear of the Ranger. This is a crafted spear, so this is not a world drop. This is a spear that had to have been crafted. And it actually features an attunement perk as well. The perks on this spear are Arboreal Attunement, Enfeebling Skewer, and Vicious. So, Arboreal Attunement, or as some people refer to it as Nature Attune, deals an additional 18% weapon damage as nature damage. This is especially good against players that run a lot of physical resistances or thrust damage resistances. Like I was saying before, I want to spread the types of damage that I'm doing among multiple elements, multiple types. The attunement perk scales off of weapon damage, so just another reason why I'm running the strength variation of this build as opposed to the intelligence variation. Next, we have Enfeebling Skewer. This is arguably the strongest perk that you can have on a spear. Not a passive ability, not like on the weapon tree or anything else, or on your armor pieces, on the spear. This is the strongest ability or the strongest perk that you can have on it in terms of dueling. This perk does not increase your damage in any way on its own, but it does provide the best weaken in the game, reducing the damage of any enemy hit by 44% for 8 seconds. This is a direct counter to Empower type builds, and it counts as another debuff. So, in the end, we do get our third debuff exclusively with just the spear and exploit weakness. Moving on, we have Vicious. Vicious is just a flat 12% increase to our critical hit damage. Because of the playstyle and our general skirmishing tactics, the odds of getting crits is pretty high in this build. Hitting people from behind will always crit, so this is especially good against players that are running away from you as well. For our gem slot, we have a Rune Glass of Frozen Aquamarine. Different from the Rune Glass of Electrifying Aquamarine that the Rapier has. The reason for this is because the dot damage from the Rapier is lightning damage, and the one for the spear is ice damage. These do not stack. So if I had a Rapier with the Frostburn or the ice damage dot, it would not stack with the spear dot. So that is why I am running a separate elemental Rune Glass for this. So we could see here my weight for my armor items. I am running 12.6, I guess let's just call it pounds. I'm running 12.6 pounds of weight for my armor pieces. I already know that there's going to be those elitists out there. They're going to say 12.6, you should be at 12.7. Why aren't you at 12.7? I agree. Running 12.7 is the most optimal way to be in light armor. And the best way to be at 12.7 weight in light armor is going medium chest with light gear for the rest of your armor pieces. Now, because I'm poor and finding best in slot light gear that's not grossly overpriced is rare and annoying, I run a light head, light chest, light hands, medium legs, and medium feet. And because of that, I'm at 12.6 weight. It is a 0.1 weight difference, and I'm pretty much saving at least a couple 100K in gold just from that 0.1 pound weight difference. So for me, it's just not worth the investment to have full bis at 12.7. And below in the description of the video, I've linked a spreadsheet that shows every layout possible that you can have and the weight of the armor pieces that you need to have in order to be at the most optimal weight possible for that layout. So now let's go over the actual armor pieces. For my headpiece, the armor perks I have are Freedom, which reduces the time of slows, stuns, and roots by 11%. Refreshing Evasion, that reduces my current unsheathed weapons cooldowns by 0.75% after every dodge. And Resilient, which reduces the amount of damage that I take from crits by 4.9%. So this is just going back to the 150 point milestone for Constitution, you know, where we take reduced hits. We take reduced damage from critical hits. So now instead of 10, we're basically at 14.9. And we're going to be increasing that by 4.9 every time that we have another piece of Resilient in the build. Next, our chest, light chest. Same perks as the helmet: Freedom, Refreshing Evasion, Resilient. For our hands, we have Fortifying Perforate. Fortifying Perforate, best defensive perk that you can have on your armor as far as weapons for the spear. It gives me a 9.6% fortify for 6 seconds per successful hit of Perforate. So if I get 2 hits, I'm at 19.2% fortify. And if I get all 3 hits, that is, I believe, 28.8% fortify just from landing 3 hits of Perforate. Once you hit those, your opponent's rended. You have Fortify. You can brawl out. That is the time to brawl. We have another piece of Freedom. And we also have a piece of Shirking Fortification, which will give me a 3.9% fortify for 3 seconds if I dodge through an enemy attack. For our legs, medium legs, Freedom, Shirking Energy. Now, Shirking Energy provides me with 15 stamina if I dodge an attack, and it's a cooldown of 6 seconds. Now, very, very few people know this. Evade and Shirking Energy work together. If you evade an attack successfully and your Shirking Energy cooldown is up, you will not only gain the 20 stamina from the evade, you will also gain the 15 stamina from Shirking Energy. You can see the clip. I evade. I get 35, 36 stamina from an evade only. That's effectively a whole other role, to be honest. So very, very good in this build. And then for the last perk, we have Resilient. Now for the booties, we run another piece of Freedom, Resilient, and Refreshing, which reduces all of my weapon cooldowns by 2.9%. Not much to say about Refreshing. Cooldown reduction, great in any build. So to tally it up, just from the armor pieces, I have 5 pieces of Freedom, 4 pieces of Resilient, 2 Refreshing Evasion, 1 Refreshing, 1 Shirking Fort, 1 Shirking Energy, and Fortifying Perforate. Now, 5 Freedom pieces totals a 55% reduction in the time of slows, stuns, and roots that I receive. The Freedom cap itself is 50%. So I'm at 55%, but really I'm only getting 50%. That doesn't mean that I'm completely missing out on that extra 5% of freedom that I have. With medium and heavy classes, they have increased crowd control durations for being that weight. So medium grants you 10% increased crowd control duration, and heavy grants you 20% increase in CC duration. that leftover 5% of freedom that I have effectively makes that bonus 5% at 15% for heavies. This combination of perks that I have effectively gets me out of all stun lock combos, reduces the amount of crit damage that I take, not just by the 20% from the armor abilities, but also the 10% from the 150 con. So I'm really at almost 30% crit damage reduction, which is, we go back to the spear, it basically makes a crit useless in a sense. It's like as if the crit damage multiplier wasn't even there, but that's only because I'm running so much resilient. This combination of perks also rewards me for dodging attacks. And, you know, as a light roly-poly player, I'm dodging a lot. So definitely like shirking perks on this build. With the fortifying perforate, I'm pretty much at fortify cap from this. And, you know, landing all 3 hits, you're extremely tanky even as a light player if you land all 3 hits of perforate. You have pretty much 30% damage reduction just from that. And even just getting 1 or 2 hits off of it, very significant in PvP. 10-20% fortify in PvP, very, very significant. Moving on now to my jewelry. So, the amulet. It has stamina recovery, health, and thrust protection. The stamina recovery perk grants the user 98 stamina if hits while below 50% health, and it's got a cooldown of 30 seconds. For most melee builds, this perk is a staple. You should always be running this. In combination with my other armor perks, this is just pure synergy overall. Not only will it give me extra movement, it gives me additional iframes, more chances to potentially trigger any shirking bonuses in my armor. So yeah, stamina recovery, love this thing. It's gotten me out of so many bad situations that I put myself in. Health. Health is another staple perk that you should have as a melee, really in all builds. It increases your maximum health by 9.7% and will overall increase the effectiveness of your health pots and regeneration potions, because both of those potions scale off of your max health. So yes, health, not really much to say. Great. Pretty much a staple in all builds. And finally, for the last perk, we have thrust protection. It reduces the amount of thrust damage that we take by 10%. And because OPR is, you know, OPR, it provides me that extra protection against muskets and bow players. For the ring, I have Hardy, Ice Damage, and Bloodletting. Hardy increases my stamina by 9.7%. So instead of having 100 stamina, I now have 110 stamina. This is just another staple perk that you're supposed to have if you're running light, even medium sometimes. Ice Damage increases all of my ice damage by 4.9%. So now you see why I'm running aquamarines in my weapons, as well as running Frostburn for my spear. And finally, we have Bloodletting. Bloodletting gives me, or it gives my bleeds 29% longer duration. Let's do some math here. We have the skewer bleed. It went from 10 seconds to 15 seconds, and with Bloodletting, it brings it all the way up to 19 seconds of bleed. So that's pretty much 380% weapon damage because we're running Bloodletting. Mind you, this isn't all at once, this is overtime. I know, I'm not trying to say that it's a lot of burst damage. No, it's a lot of sustained damage. So yeah, that is why I run this ring itself. And believe it or not, I got this ring for 7K. So finally, the earring. I run Healthy Toast, Refreshing Toast, and Regenerating. Healthy Toast effectively turns my mana pots into mini health pots. I am drinking those things like Kool-Aid. They heal me for 9.7% of my maximum health. So around 1200 health I'm getting each time that I drink a mana pot. Refreshing Toast decreases the cooldown for all of my potions by 29%. So instead of 30 seconds for a health pot, it goes down to 20. Same deal with regen potions from 30 seconds to 20. And mana pots are on a 10-second cooldown. So like I said, I'm drinking those mana pots like it's going out of style. And then finally, for the last perk, we have Regenerating. Regenerating grants me a passive regeneration of 0.49% of my health every second. This is great. That means that I'm always gaining health no matter what I'm doing. And like I was saying, in a duel where you're not supposed to be using pots, regenerating is a must-have for a duelist. So 0.49% of my health, I'm gaining around, I think it was like 57 health every second. But, you know, say that I'm trying to avoid getting hit for a bit. If I am able to avoid getting hit for 10 seconds, that's 570 health. That is significant. Every health point matters. Well, that's it. This is the end of the line. The end of the 4-part Spear Rapier build series. I've gone over my weapons. I've gone over the perks and passives I select, the attribute breakdown, as well as my gear. There's nothing left to show. I really appreciate if you made it this far and you watched all the other videos. And as a special thank you, I've prepared a little bit of a demo for the end of the series. So enjoy.